the House has conducted a nearly 2-year-long post-mortem investigation into the origins of COVID-19 and the effectiveness of governmental policies. The 500-plus page report basically confirms everything that you would have gotten removed from social media for in 2020. We found that these were, in fact, correct. The report confirms that all evidence points to COVID leaking from a lab in China that was doing gain-of-function research. The report also found that social distancing, lockdowns, and masks had very little effect on preventing the spread of the virus. But those techniques were disastrous for children in particular and learning environments, disastrous for social learning. The report goes so far as to say that certain aspects of guidance given by Dr. Fauci in particular were self-admittedly, quote unquote, sort of just appeared out of thin air. So, Ben, after the pardon of Hunter, there's been a lot of speculation about whether or not Biden may pardon Fauci himself, as he's seen kind of as a top contender for the investigations under the Trump administration. What do you think the implications of this are to the American people who were effectively lied to for the last 4 years?
I think it's egregious. The fact that the institution so militantly came out against the talking points that turned out to be true is crazy. And then the fact that Fauci might get pardoned rather than answering for his alleged crimes against the American people is just a very sad conclusion to the story. I think this is a situation where COVID-19 is undeniably dangerous, but particularly as more things come to light, we're learning that the cure in this case was worse than the disease, particularly for children.
Yeah, and I think when we look at, overall measures put in place, not just the vaccine, not just masking, but everything, was that worse for people? I think absolutely. And one of the things that has been a big question up until now was who knew what and when. Right? Particularly Dr. Fauci, right? When he was saying, hey, you've got a mask, did he know that wearing a mask all day long was different than wearing it in a controlled medical environment? And the answer to him, admittedly, was yes. Did they know when they were pushing for vaccine mandates that the vaccine wouldn't actually stop you from spreading it to other people? Yes, they did. And so to me, this report is a massive bombshell for who should face accountability for these disastrous policies that were put in place.
Yeah, 100%. And I do hope that Fauci does have to answer for these things, and we'll see what defense he gives. But there were just so many odd things. Some of the discussion around COVID-19 undeniably went too far, but so many things have been vindicated. And even the question about, it's not your breath that spreads it, it's the droplets. And so your mask might stop the droplets. I might be wrong, but I believe it's like there's no functional difference. It's like, you're kind of breathing out moisture as well as the droplets themselves. And so all these things kind of just show that the American people were really placing their trust in these institutions and these experts and officials, and they were being lied to, and the truth was being suppressed. So I really hope that the American people not only gets the truth, but that the people that have forwarded these false narratives and suppressed the truth have to come to account.
Well, and as someone who worked in, air purification in the past, a mask has holes in it at a microscopic level. And, COVID itself is 0.3 microns in size, which is just enough that certain air purifiers could take some of that out of the air. And in fact, like an N95 mask, like a surgical mask, like the ones where they can put smelling salts under your nose and you can't smell them, those, which have a tremendous amount of medical data to show that they work, are very different than, the cloth masks that people were wearing, where 0.3 microns is just much, much smaller. than a mask of that quality can sort of do. And ultimately, we saw even towards the tail end that there was this statement that masks were not necessarily about actually preventing the disease, but they were a signal to other people that you cared about the disease and that you were washing your hands more often and that you should maintain some kind of distance. And ultimately, I think that idea that a lot of these things were about signaling your virtue, about signaling which side of the, policy you were on. I think that this is horrid that this became sort of a two-sided issue. And frankly, I really blame the government for that. Because, when you saw, like, when Trump was developing the vaccine, there were a ton of Democrats who were like, absolutely not, I'll never take it. And then it was Biden, and they're like, well, maybe we will take it. And then they started to do the vaccine mandates. And to me, that was really where everything started to kind of fall apart in terms of, party lines dealing with a medical issue. I find that to be, just wrong. It shouldn't be part of the conversation, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, if, you should be protected from a disease. So Ben, I suppose my question to you is, obviously we're talking about this on YouTube right now. Do you think it is safe to say these things on social media now? Again, in our case, we are directly reporting on a congressional report, right? We're reporting the news. These are not personal opinions. This is conveying what the Congress has said. Even so, what do you think the odds are that this video will get taken down?
I think it's less likely than it was in the past, but I think it's probably wise, particularly on YouTube and Meta platforms, to be cautious about how you're framing the information and what you're actually saying. It is really sad that this issue is something everybody should have been able to unite over. It should have been a really unifying event for our country, and because of the way things transpired politically, it turned into a very divisive issue. And yeah, as you said, these external markers, these signifiers of where you stood on the issue, kind of became part of people's identity. And it's really sad that this got turned into a political and cultural issue rather than something we could all work together to resolve. So I'm hoping that the climate has shifted enough, both with Twitter becoming more open to differing opinions being expressed, in addition to some of these things that were getting suppressed being vindicated. I'm hoping that the public square opens up for more people to dialogue about this so that we can find the truth together.
Well, to end our show on a little bit more of a lighthearted note, Polymarket currently has the odds, I believe, at like 68% or so, that they think Fauci is going to receive a pardon from Biden before he leaves office. Ben, if you had to put $1 on each side, what do you think? Is Fauci going to get a pardon?
I would bet that he would. We'll have to see, but I suspect that he will, particularly because it was such a divisive political issue and Biden stands very squarely on one side of that issue. I would not be surprised at all to see Fauci get pardoned.